All right, morning, everybody. Happy race day. We got the final playoff race here for the round of 8. Hopefully, you guys were able to catch that Xfinity race yesterday. Pretty crazy racing, crazy finish there at the end. Especially between teammates and the cut line and all the must wins. So that one got a little bit chaotic. Don't know if this Cup race will get as chaotic as that Xfinity race, but it should be fun to watch and see what happens. So I'm encouraged today for today's race. I know the next gen car has not been the best on the short tracks. I know the short tracks have been kind of boring. It's been difficult to pass. Not the typical short track, racing that we're used to. But regardless, we still have a DFS slate to play. It's crazy. There's only 2 races left of the NASCAR Cup season. So for today's race, we got 500 laps. So that means lap leaders and guys that can pick up fast laps are extremely important. You want to prioritize those lap leaders, those fast lap getters over place differential today. So for me, I want at least 2 lap leaders in every single lineup that I'm building, if not 3, maybe even potentially 4. You got 125 points today for laps led and 225 points up for fast laps. So it's going to be a very high scoring slate. If you don't have those lap leaders in your line, you're not going to cash today. So when we look at the slate, let's try to figure out who those potential lap leaders might be. Some guys that we want to target, maybe some guys to take risks on. Maybe some trap plays, things of that nature. So in the top range, you got Hamlin, Byron, Larson, Truex, Blaney, and Bell. Now, Bell and Larson are already advanced. They do not care about the stage points. They don't care where they finish. I mean, all they really want to do is win the race. And I'm sure both of these teams have a lot of focus going into Phoenix. So not that they're not going to try this weekend, not that they're not going to be good plays, just know that those drivers are locked in. So, they can kind of relax a little bit per se. Now, Hamlin is the most expensive on the slate. He starts 4th. He has the second best driver rating on the short flat tracks in 2023. This is also statistically a great track for him. Pretty fast in practice, qualified toward the front, suggesting that he does have a fast car. Now, Hamlin's probably going to be my second favorite lap leader behind Martin Truex today. So, but I also think the majority of the DFS players are also going to go to Truex and Hamlin as their main lap leaders, just like we saw in the Xfinity series that a lot of people went with Sammy Smith and John Hunter Nemechek for their lap leaders. Now, for the most part, that more or less worked out with Sammy Smith leading a bulk of the race yesterday. But just know Truex and Hamlin are probably going to carry the most ownership as far as lap leaders go. William Byron, I'm not really getting to a ton. He's pretty expensive. He starts 16th. He gives you a little bit more place differential upside. My fear is if you're playing William Byron, I don't know if he has a car to get out front and lead laps, and then you're potentially sacrificing a lap leader in your line. Now, any of these drivers are viable. I think you can still have ownership to them. I'm still going to have ownership to William Byron. However, I am going to be, higher on some of the other guys. Like I'm going to be higher on Kyle Larson, even though he's locked in, even though this race, quote unquote, doesn't matter for him. Larson has, these are Larson's finishes on the short tracks in 2023. A 4th, a 1st, a 1st, a 3rd, and then 19th. So those are pretty good. A lot to like there. He's already locked in, and he also has the best driver rating on short flat tracks, only behind Denny Hamlin. So I really like Kyle Larson today. I don't know how much ownership he'll get. I know Truex is going to draw a lot of ownership. Truex finished 3rd here in the spring. He's known for being good on the short flat tracks. He has the pole position. He has Ty Gibbs starting right next to him. So maybe there's a quote unquote agreement that, hey, you're going to let Truex go and then you can slot in behind him if he's able to do that. So there's a lot of signs pointing that Martin Truex is going to be the early lap leader. He's going to be able to do what Sammy Smith did yesterday in the Xfinity Series race. He just lead a bulk of this race. It is a 500 lap race. It's a long race. Anything can happen. If you're playing the ownership game, you want to, try to get a little bit different. Maybe get off Truex, maybe pivot to a different driver up here. But Truex is going to be a relatively safe, option as far as confidence rankings go, as far as who those lap leaders are going to be. Like Ryan Blaney a lot too. Blaney was the fastest car in Group B. And Group B that went out in practice, they had a little bit, or they did have different track conditions than Group A had. Group A had a very fast track. You could see everyone in Group A's, their practice times were significantly better than everyone in Group B. So you have to be a little mindful of looking strictly at practice data for those reasons. He didn't make the second round of qualifying, just barely missed out on it. I think he should be able to move forward starting 11th. Don't know if he'll be able to get out front and lead laps, but he looks like he has a pretty solid car this weekend. So he's another driver, I want to be aggressive on, probably over the field on. But I still think Hamlin, Larson, and Truex are my favorite lap leaders. And then I want to build around those with either some risky, GPP options, maybe some lower owned, pivot plays. But again, I'm going to be probably 20 maxing easily today, getting to different combinations and variations of these guys. Christopher Bell, we talked on a little bit, also pretty good on the short flat tracks. Like Larson, he's already locked into the championship, probably, looking ahead to Phoenix already. Again, he's in the player pool, more of a GPP option. I really like Logano. I like Blaney a lot today. I also like Logano. He was second here in the spring, finished second at New Hampshire, and fourth most recently at the second Richmond race. So the short flat tracks in 2023 have been pretty good for Logano. He slotted in right behind Blaney in the second group of practice. He starts 15th, gives you some place differential upside. So if you can get to, Blaney or Logano today, I like those plays. I don't know how much ownership they're going to carry. My hope is they can pick up some fast laps, maybe get some track position, maybe get out front and lead you some laps. Keselowski's a play I've been playing a lot more of recently. I just don't know if I'm getting to him a ton this weekend. I have him as medium, just because he has been able to find a way to the front as of late, despite where he qualifies, despite what he shows in practice. I prefer Logano and Blaney if you can afford it, but I don't mind Keselowski as a tournament option. Tyler Reddick did get loose in qualifying. He's okay. Again, he's not a target play for me for any means. I don't think he's going to be able to get out front and lead you laps. Kyle Busch, I personally would be under the field on Kyle Busch. I know he's going to draw a lot of ownership. He starts deep in the field. The problem is he just hasn't been good on the short flat tracks, especially in the next gen car. Because I think he's going to draw a lot of ownership, and I think he might stall out. I mean, I think he's still going to score well. I'd rather take more risks and get more of those potential lap leaders in my line. So, he starts deep, but his finishes on the short flat tracks, are most likely, in the teens, towards the 20s, and it's still going to score him decently well. I just, for whatever reason, if he has an issue or isn't able to get that high, I'd rather have, another driver in my lineup that I think can have a little bit more, upside, in my opinion. Not really getting to Elliott. Elliott's just been having a rough year, probably finishes around where he starts. Chris Buescher's in a must-win situation, so that's somewhat good in a regard because he knows what he has to do. The problem is just they did not unload well. Don't look like they have a great car. Kind of starts mid-pack. Probably is going to run about mid-pack for most of the day. The one encouraging thing is he did win the most recent Richmond race. So, the last short track we were on, Christopher Buescher was in victory lane, but it's going to be a tall ask today for him to advance. I do like Kevin Harvick. He's going to be, driver I'm going to take a risk on. I may be taking a risk on, I don't know, but he's been really good on the short tracks. He's the third best driver rating on the short tracks this year, only behind Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. Really good value for his price. Might not be able to lead you laps, but I'm sure he has this track in Phoenix next weekend circled and this is it. I mean, he's only got 2 races left, so if he's going to win, he has to do it now. And I think Martinsville is probably his best opportunity to get to victory lane. Ty Gibbs. Again, I think what's going to happen is Gibbs is going to let Truex get the lead, kind of a teammate manufacturer Joe Gibbs agreement. Now, that might not happen. Ty Gibbs starts on the front row, maybe the outside lane. gets a jump. Maybe Truex struggles on the restart. Maybe Ty Gibbs is able to get out front and lead you those laps. And he gives you a significant price discount over Martin Truex Jr. Now, I'm going to have significantly more Truex than Gibbs, but don't be afraid to sprinkle some Gibbs lineups in there. You never know what can happen. Maybe he's able to maintain his track position as well. He's been running better as of late. Not super confident in him being a lap leader, but you never know with NASCAR DFS. So I always like to try to cover myself with all different angles. So if there's a scenario where Ty Gibbs is that early lap leader, I don't want to be the guy with no ownership to Ty Gibbs. Ross Chastain is probably going to get a lot of media hype, a lot of TV coverage for the Hail Melon effort that we saw last year. This year, he's not in the playoffs any longer, so we will not be seeing that move. And they also have outlawed that move, and he said it was not fun doing it either. But he hasn't been great this year on short tracks. I think he kind of, like Elliott, most likely just runs around where he starts. Bubba Wallace starts sixth. Decent value today. He looks like he has a decent car. He did finish ninth here in the spring, eighth at New Hampshire, 12th at the second Richmond race. So if he's able to replicate that type of performance, I think he gives you decent value. I wish he either A, started a little bit closer to the front, or B, a little bit further. I don't think he's going to be able to get out front and lead you some laps, but we know track position is key on these tracks and how hard it is to pass. So he has both of those going for him. I just don't know if he has that last oomph, to get him over to get you those dominator points. Like Alex Bowman, I don't think a lot of people are going to play Bowman, especially because he wasn't great in practice. But his finishes, if you're looking at just track or similar data this year, suggests that he's going to be a good place differential play. His finishes of 9th, 8th, 11th, 14th, and 18th. So that's encouraging to see for a driver for $7,500 starting 22nd. You're not going to be able to play all these guys. You're going to have to balance it out. You're going to have to find some mid-range plays, some drivers on the lower end of the slate. Bowman, for me, is a driver that gives you some place differential upside with good finishing potential upside. I think if he can get inside the top 15, the top 12, that's going to be a pretty good day for Alex Bowman. Then you got the trio of the SHR cars. Normally, anytime we get to these SHR cars, we are not interested at all. But for whatever reason, the short track program at this team is pretty good. And people may be afraid to play them. We saw these teams run really well here in the spring. Almirola just announced his retirement, so I'm sure they're going to be talking about that. He finished sixth here in the spring. Good qualifying effort this weekend. Chase Briscoe is probably my favorite option of the three. Again, kind of like Ty Gibbs, more of a contrarian lap leader, significant price discount over Martin Truex Jr. But for whatever reason, if Truex has an issue, gets into someone, a penalty on pit road, who are some drivers who are able to take advantage of that? Yes, you're going to have Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson right behind these, the Gibbs and the Briscoes. And it's probably a very small chance that Briscoe or Gibbs can get out front and lead you some laps. But I'm willing to take that risk. I don't mind getting a potential lap leader in my line for $7,300 basically. So even if he runs top 10, he's going to store decently well. But these are some of the plays I'm trying to take a little bit more of a risk on for today's slate. Brian Priest would rather play Harvick or Briscoe just because I think they have better lap leading upside or fast lap ability. But I think Almirola or Priest look like they have similar types of cars that can hang around the top 10. And you never know, at the end of the race, if things get crazy, maybe they can advance their position a handful of spots and walk out with a, top 8, top 5 finish. Not likely going to happen, but, you have to give them kudos for what they're able to do in practice and qualifying. 6K range is pretty ugly, in my opinion. I'm not getting the Suarez. I'm not getting the Jones. I'm not getting the Allmendinger. I am getting the Austin Dillon, though. I like him a lot. He was 12th here in the spring, 9th at New Hampshire, 9th at Richmond, too. So practice and qualifying efforts, not good. But trying to take that a little bit with a grain of salt, just with the varying track conditions that we saw. And I'm trying to focus more on how these teams have performed on the short flat tracks this year. And Dillon's actually performed decently well on the short flat tracks, especially when you are comparing him to the guys priced around him. So I'm going to have a lot of Austin Dillon today. Carson Hocevar, I think, is okay. Didn't run a lot of laps in practice, which is a concern. His qualifying time was very slow, also a concern, but he starts so deep that it's hard to envision him not gaining spots. The question is, how many spots can he really gain? Stenhouse and McDowell are similar. They had better practice times and better qualifying efforts than Hocevar. Don't give you as much place differential upside, but probably give you a little bit better finishing potential upside than Hocevar does. But if you're going to do that, I might as well just punt all the way down and play Burton and LaJoie and try to advance maybe a mid-range play that's place differential based or finishing potential based to potentially maybe get a third or fourth lap leader in my line. So I'm not getting to Gilliland. I'm not getting to Cindric. I'm not getting to Haley. Cindric doesn't have one top 20 finish on any of the 5 short tracks that we've been at this year. Haley's resume is pretty much the same exact as Austin Cindric. So it's just not a lot to like there. Todd Gilliland, good qualifying effort, just starts a little bit too high. Burton and LaJoie looks like identical plays in my opinion. I think LaJoie is going to carry more ownership just because it's LaJoie. He starts a little bit further back. He's a little bit cheaper. But I don't mind either of those punt plays. And then I'm not getting to the Rick Ware cards or, the BJ McLeod machine. I don't mind Ty Dillon. I haven't really finished building my line. So if you need some price savings and you think that this race turns into even a sliver of what we saw in the Xfinity Series race, maybe Dillon's able to get you a 30th place finish, and that allows you to get that third potential lap leader in your lineup, or maybe that fourth lap leader in your lineup. And if that lap leader hits, it's going to pay off for Ty Dillon. He can't really lose you points, but he's not going to score well. The only way that, playing someone down here, really the bottom, 4 drivers works out is if you can get another lap leader in your line and if that lap leader hits. So that's going to do it for the Martinsville Cup Series race. I'll post this up on Twitter. It's at Fast Cars FM. We only got 1 weekend left and it's the off season. So if you've been riding with us this long, we appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week.